Hi, I'm Ryan Szymanski, curator for Battleship New Jersey Museum and Memorial. Today, we've got a video on the various steering positions on the ship, including aft steering. We're going to run through all four of Battleship New Jersey's steering positions. This video is a remake of one we did over 2 years ago, so it's part of a series where we're redoing old videos to bring them up to our current standard. Steering a ship is one of those critical functions that has to happen regardless of if you're in a rowboat or a battleship. Battleships feature heavy armor, but they also feature massive redundancy. We're on the O4 level, where the bridge of Battleship New Jersey is, and we're standing inside the armored conning tower. This is the single thickest piece of armor on the entire ship. 17.3 inches. Most of the ship relies on layered armor defense, and so the individual plates can be much thinner. However, as you can see, there's not much room in here, so we're relying on a single plate of steel to keep out battleship caliber projectiles. This is Class A face hardened armor. It is not supposed to move at all. You'll notice that there are view slits all around the conning tower here. You can't really see a whole heck of a lot out of them. I'm told they're really more intended for ventilation than actually seeing where you're going. On a ship in the middle of the ocean, it's not all that vital to see where you're going. We've got repeaters for the ship's main gyro compass, which is located deep down in the ship's armored citadel. And this sends a compass reading to repeaters all over the ship, the four steering stations and other places. So we've got that. We've also got a small surface search radar set in here, and that is showing us objects around us as well. This space also has an abnormally high number of phone jacks and communications equipment so that we can hear from lookouts all around the ship tell us what they see. It's also got state-of-the-art when the ship was built voice tubes to the lookouts above us, as well as still functioning periscopes that allow us to look out the top of the armored conning tower and get a much better view. Our second steering position is 4 levels above the armored conning tower on the O8 level of the superstructure. This is about halfway up the tower where you see portholes. This is the one steering position where you can actually see where you're going. I suspect it was intended to be more used than it actually was. Visibility is great. It has the least amount of protection though. As built, there was a captain's at-sea cabin up here as well. For whatever reason, later in the ship's career, that at-sea cabin was removed, and it was replaced with a meteorological office. The captain's at-sea cabin on the O4 level, however, was retained throughout the ship's entire career. So that leads me to believe that at one point, the Navy thought that this space was going to be used frequently, perhaps whenever the ship was not in combat. But then when the ship goes into combat, control switches to the O4 level. And it seems like by the 60s and the 80s, the ship was just always controlled from the O4 level. Conning towers were on the decline in battleships, and some later American battleship modifications deleted the armored conning tower entirely. So I don't think it was the fact that the Navy thought that having the conning station in an armored position was that important. It might have had to do with the captain, the ship's old man, not wanting to climb up and down 8 stories from the main deck. I'm not sure. I imagine that the position was deleted on all of the other Iowas too, so it's not just one person's personal preference. But again, I'm not entirely sure. Regardless, even though this space probably had decreasing importance over the ship's career, as reliance on electronics such as radar became greater, It was never entirely deleted, and it is retained as one of the 4 steering positions on the Battleship. This space, located on the forward end of Broadway on 3rd deck, inside the armored citadel of the ship, and just outside Damage Control Central, is known as Central Station. Not all of the Iowas have a steering position located here, but New Jersey does. This space is even more protected than the armored conning tower because we're inside the armored citadel of the ship. That does tend to reduce visibility somewhat, there being a lack of portholes in the armored belt and all. However, visibility isn't that important, especially when you're steaming at sea, when you've most likely taken damage to your main conning position and had to revert to control from here. Odds are there's nothing around to hit. But you still have a gyro compass repeater pointing to true north, and that's what you're navigating off of. There are dozens of these repeaters all over the ship, and they're all fed from the master gyro here. Iowa-class battleships do have a backup gyro all the way back aft, in case somehow this one's taken out. But this is what feeds all of the gyro compass repeaters around the ship. Needs electrical power to work. If we lose electrical power, we've also got magnetic compasses around the ship as a backup. The magnetic compasses point to magnetic north, not true north like the gyro, but if you've lost electrical power, that's the least of your worries. The final steering position on Iowa-class battleships is aft steering, which is downright spacious compared to aft steering on most other vessels. Right now, you're only seeing about a quarter of the space. This is where steering is done for just the starboard rudder. There's a separate console like this on the other side of a bulkhead for the port rudder. Each of the rudders has a pair of hydraulic motors so that if one fails, you can switch over to the other. So not only is this your most redundant steering position, it also has redundancies built in. And so you notice there are 2 wheels here, one to manually engage each of the motors. Right now, it's not locked in, but this device here engages it. During general quarters, special sea detail, and other states of readiness like that, after steering is always manned. If there's any sort of failure in steering up above, you can manually take over from here via selector switches like these, so that as long as it's not a severe emergency like the rudder being completely jammed, you should be able to continue to steer the ship. This is especially important when you're going into and out of port or other confined waterways. This is perhaps the most armored of all of the steering positions. Much like Central Station, which is inside the armored citadel, this is in its own separate armored box, even further aft, and the armored box around this is about an inch thicker on all sides than the citadel. So you've got even more protection in this space. It's extremely unlikely that this would be knocked out in enemy action. This is the starboard rudder post, where the rudder penetrates the hull, and these are the hydraulic rams that move it port to starboard. It can turn to about 35 degrees in each direction, but really around 33 degrees you want to stop so you don't jam it all the way one way or the other. And here you can see a lot of the Class B armor plating that makes up this space. Angled on the outboard bulkhead. This is the aft bulkhead, and 7 inches thick on the overhead. Thanks for watching. I hope you liked this remake of one of our previous videos. If you want us to continue making videos like this, let us know in the comment section down below. Also, if you have any questions about the steering positions,
Let us know down there. We're pretty good about getting back to people. Battleship New Jersey receives operating support from the New Jersey Department of State, and also from viewers like you. If you would like to support the museum, and specifically our YouTube channel, there's a link in the description below that'll allow you to do that. Your support has allowed us to go from making one video a week to making as many as 5 videos a week this year. We appreciate your continued support because we really enjoy making these videos. Remember to like, share, and subscribe so that you're notified when we put out new videos.